Okay, the purpose of this video is to go over the cleaning process of your Ventahood. I've got a gunmetal gray B200 blower housing here that I've put inside this sink basin. You'll notice I filled it up a quarter of the way full with extremely hot water, and I'm using a liberal amount of Dawn degreaser, and I'm going to let this sit in hot water for hours, maybe even overnight, depending on how long it's been since the Ventahood has been cleaned. Again, we want to see you do this maybe once a month, maybe once every 3 months, depending on how often you cook. Maybe you'll only pull it down once a year if you're a very light cooker. If you've moved into a home with a Ventahood and it's been neglected and nobody's pulled it down for a long period of time, you might find that the deposits that have built up down here, you absolutely cannot remove them simply with a scrub pad or a mildly abrasive pad. And in those cases, you might move up to a SOS style or 3M scouring pad. You can do this, but just be aware that this is a painted surface, and once you damage the paint, then you're down to a cold rolled steel that will eventually rust. And you can do that in order to clean this, but we recommend to first try getting it clean without damaging the paint. Your options once you do damage the paint, of course, you could take this down to a local sandblaster and powder coater, and they could sandblast all the paint off this as well as your grime and repaint this unit like brand new. Or you could order a new housing from ventahoodparts.com. Here we have these flaps. These are removable. They simply pop in and out of these clips. So we're just illustrating here the process that we use. And maybe if you've got really bad deposits, you might do this over a 24-hour period, adding more and more hot water as you go. So as we shift over to the blower wheels, what I like to do is fill a pot here strategically at the exact height that my blower wheel sits at, and I'm gonna put that pot on the stove to get that water to a really hot level, and then I can soak this in this fashion. Now I've put the water at just the right level so that, of course, we don't want the water to enter into the motor component because this is electrical and you don't want to create the rust process there. But after I let this sit for a period of time, I'm able to pull this out, and I'll use a tool like a toothbrush to go around and clean off the tines of this motor. Remember, this is a hood. It's kind of like a car engine. It's always going to have some level of grease, so this is something you're not going to find you need to do on a regular basis. Now, I do get customers that haven't pulled this wheel off of the motor, and they say that it won't come off, and there are a couple reasons that can cause this. Over tightening of the set screw can displace metal on that shaft. That can make that wheel unremovable. And in addition to that, this is operating under a lot of heat, so expansion and contraction in a heating environment plus two metals that sit on one another can literally fuse together over time. So if you absolutely can't get this wheel off and you want to replace your wheel because you're finding that it's out of round, you might need to replace both the wheel and the motor. Trick I have for that is in this demonstration, I'm going to use a long drill bit, but you could also use a Phillips screwdriver that's really thin. And essentially, I'm going to put this down onto a mat, and I'm going to slide this drill bit through one end of the blower wheel and outside the other end of these tines. And I'm going to step down on either end of this blower wheel. Now, what this is doing is it's holding the wheel to the ground, and I can use both hands to lift up on this motor plate to break it free from this wheel. And I recommend doing this if you're finding that your wheel is really stubborn and you're having a hard time getting it removed. So these are a couple of tricks you might keep in mind for the cleaning process of your Ventahood.